So you see that kid right there? That's me when I was 15 years old. A virgin, kissed one girl, she got up and left. And for the rest of my high school, it wasn't until I was pretty much 21 when I became a little bit more confident in myself.
The fuck is he doing?
How exactly did I go from this shy virgin Asian kid to a Kevin Nguyen today? Well, I'll show you.
5 days a week. And I've been doing that for almost 3 months now.
Of course, I don't technically classify myself as a Kevin Nguyen that goes to raves and looks a certain way, but it's a little bit of an inside joke where every time now, entering my new single phase era, I get looked or classified or typified as a player now. So growing up, I moved schools and I initially had a group of friends, and then I didn't have a group of friends. So I moved into this new neighborhood and I felt like I didn't belong. I did not really have like a sense of security. And I always felt like when I moved in the third grade to this new school, everyone was already in groups and cliques already. And here I am being like, I'm the new kid in class. So from that point on, I met other people, so called friends at that time. Looking back, they were not friends, and they made me feel less of myself. And during that time, the crucial time when I was 8 or 9 years old, I felt like I had to start being cool. And this is where my approval mechanisms started kicking in. I remember the times where I would help girls, right, on their homework. I'd look over there, I'm like, oh, actually, the answer is actually C, you know? Um, all carbohydrates are actually stored as energy and used in the body as a fuel mechanism. Oh, really, Peter? That's great. Thanks for helping me. I remember being terrified, petrified of adding a girl on MSN. Y'all might have used Yahoo Messenger. Maybe you don't even know what that is now. And literally hovering around for like an hour. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna add this girl and I'm gonna press OK. Because when you add that person, it shows up a notification on their MSN. And then I remember shaking and shivering, be like, okay, what was the homework for last week? And then she replied, and I'm like, okay. So me, when I was 14 years old, I finally dated a girl. This girl was into me and I could not read the signs. She would take my hand. She would poke me. And eventually we started hanging out. And this was the girl that I lost my first kiss to. I was so giddy. I'm like, oh my God, I get to hold your hand. I get to do this. She literally made me feel like a loser. I remember going to high school and she went to another high school and she'd be like, hey, all the other kids at your school say you're a loser. All the other kids say that you don't have that much friends. And then one day we just stopped hanging out. I don't remember what the alibi or reason was, but she just stopped talking. We stopped talking. And from me going from the ages of 15 to 19 years old, I really didn't really date anyone because I didn't know how. I didn't have the confidence to someone to be like, hey, you're a good person. You definitely deserve someone to talk to and be intimate with. And you deserve so much better than someone that questions your own worth. But that's a common theme throughout these years of mine. So it wasn't until I really started loving myself and doing things for me. And my first sense of being a guy is, of course, going to the gym. That was my sense of discipline, a sense of, hey, I'm gonna get shredded. At that time, not necessarily for myself, so that I can look a little bit more attractive to the opposite sex. And the huge inspiration of mine at that day was, and that's when I started going into things like self improvement and really doing things that made me look good on the external area. But then something happened again. Dated a girl again when I was 19 years old. Same thing happened, except this time she chose another guy over me. And if you have a sense of confidence and you're not a nerd and you're shy and quiet, your sense of reasonality would be external. You're like, oh, okay, that's not my person. But I took it personal. I'm like, she chose another guy over me. That means I'm not good enough. And I need to keep seeking approval. So I need to work on myself because of this situation. And from each heartbreak when I was 15 to 19, that's when I really dived into this whole self help, self improvement. How the hell do I show up for me so I can show up for anyone that is on the opposite end of who I am? One of the biggest ways of how I went from being a virgin, being very socially awkward, and not having a lot of social skills and social dynamics and understanding the different variations of people and how you filter out people, one of the biggest things that I've learned through each one of these experiences was rejection. Understanding rejection and understanding how I myself dealt with that rejection. At that time, a lot of self blame, a lot of tears, a lot of me being like, I gave you my entire heart and soul. And up into a certain point, they didn't choose me anymore. And because of that, I use that as a way where it's like, I didn't deserve love, man. I did not deserve to be loved. Because going through that little walkway as I'm putting y'all through is that I always felt like I needed to earn someone's approval. I needed someone to be like, hey, I'm cool, man. I'm worthy of love. I'm a cool ass person. But on the inside, it was so different. It was so empty. I honestly did not start loving myself until a couple of years recently, where everything I realized was for external approval. The money, how I presented myself online through these social media videos, how I looked. Deep at the sense of the core of who I was, I did not love myself. And the more inner work that I did or am still doing, the more the outer world will reflect that. So, what I mean by that, the more situations and the external world, in this case, girl, point fingers in you and tell you, you're not good enough. I don't choose you. I'm going to get up. I'm going to ghost. I'm going to disappear. And you're like, oh, I guess that's my fault. What I need to learn the hard way, the most extremely hard way, where you get into relationships that aren't the most healthiest for you. And then you realize, wait, it's also their fault. And because they weren't the one for me, I take up that emotional baggage, put that to the side, and be like, I'm glad. Thank you for saving my time. I'm on to find and figure out who is the right person. But it takes a lot of work and time, and to be able to realize that, hey, when I used to people please, when I try to make everyone my friend, I put on a mask. I put on the mask where I deep down, no matter how much people I'm around, no matter who I gain or is in my life, I never felt like I could be myself. I had to work out and look a certain way. I had to talk a certain way. As I'm getting older and learning more about things like confidence, it's more so undoing all of that. Because each girl and girlfriend I've ever dated, there are glimpses of me that I'm like, why is it that sense of me can only be shown when I'm only dating these girls that they see how great I am? They see that I can make them laugh. They see that I'm a charismatic person. I don't need to watch or read a book about how to be charismatic. It all comes down to being my most authentic self. That is the core essence of me, or you in this case. And this needs to be show up, right? Your authentic self. But as you get a little older, Now it looks like a nipple. But what this is your outer barrier. This is, let's say, your constant need for self improvement, your spirituality, right? You go another layer of this. This is your materialistic things, your jobs, your career, your finances, right? So a lot of people try to heal this, right? But for some reason, they keep attracting the same toxic partners, the same lack of, the direction in life that they want to go, because the answer is here. But most people just put on these little band aids.